This is the video I feared I'd make. I don't want to do the whole line, I hate to say, I told you so, because there's other people that do that better. But the signs with 5-star wrestling were not great from the off. So yeah, this is sort of the post-mortem, because in the space of, I'd say, roughly a month, the company went from having their first show in their current entity to being dead. So much so that the website now says, in Comic Sans, which I think is a bit... You couldn't make it formal, you just put it in Comic Sans as if it's a joke. It's with deepest regret we have to inform our customers that the company ceased to trade and no further events are to be held. All customers of the company who have not received tickets purchased by them or have held tickets for a future event which won't take place will be contacted in due course. The company is to proceed into liquidation in due course. And that's where it goes. They did... In their current entity, they did 5 shows. Which, I think we had Belfast, the last one, Plymouth, Sheffield, Newcastle, and Liverpool. That was the first stuff. So let's realise the situation that 5-star really got themselves into. And, there's audio interviews and everything chronicling this, various places on the internet. First of all, the people that are behind the thing, at least the main entity that is 5-star wrestling, weren't even people that were in the wrestling business. You might know the name 5-star wrestling because it's a video game. I just need to quickly make sure I get the details of which platforms it's on. So yeah, they did a game released on PS3 and then eventually on PS4 via the PSN, called the original one was 5-star Wrestling, and then the PS4 version was 5-star Wrestling Regenesis. And to coincide with it, they decided to put on a set of shows called Regenesis Tour. The first one they did, at least from what I can see, looking at the archive here I've got of shows, was in Edinburgh, September the 20th. With some interesting people. We've got Marty Skrull, PJ Black, Grado, Carlito, Joe Coffey, Nick Aldis, Martin Kirby, Joseph Connors, Viper, ODB, John Morrison, Ricochet. Quite a mix of big name talent and also homegrown British talent. So, to be, for a show which is basically just promoting the video game, but also promoting British wrestling, pretty solid. They had a second show, at least from what I can tell with the details. They had a second sort of week, actually, of shows. 13th, 14th and 15th of January 2016 in Newcastle, Sheffield and Liverpool, respectively. I managed to get these right. Newcastle, Sheffield and Liverpool. Again, I'm just going to go through the cards and everything. Remember, this is from people that sort of... there must be some sort of money that's coming in order to be able to get some of the names that are on these shows. So, just going through the card for the Newcastle show. Joe Coffey beating Ospreay, Grado beating Carlito, Jamie Hayter beating Zoe Lucas, Mysterio beating Jay Lethal, Nick Aldis and Big Damo beating Luke King Sharp, Jimmy Havoc beats Marty Scurll and Zack Sabre Jr. That's probably a really good match. Kid Fight beating Jason Primate. Not in related news, but Primate, who did actually appear on one of the dark matches for one of these shows in 2018, has announced his, at least for the time, long-term hiatus from wrestling due to a jaw injury. So, you know, hopefully we see him back in some capacity, you know, even if it isn't as an active wrestler. PJ Black beating Colt Cabana, and then John Morrison beating AJ Styles to become the new 5-star wrestling champion, which I think was, from what I remember, I can't remember when AJ got the belt. I guess there were other 5-star wrestling shows. I vaguely remember them doing various shows, sort of like in Scotland, because that's where they were based. Oh no, that was actually to crown the inaugural champion. I take it back. So then we had on the other, pretty much it was the same sort of people on the next show. A few other names added in. Martin Kirby was back. Tim Wiley. The other names seem to be the same. And for the Liverpool show, the big one was Big Damo beating Zach Gibson. That name is one you need to keep in mind quite considerably. So, you know, those shows were a pretty reasonable success, I would argue. And then we come to a few weeks later, and this is when the spin starts going a little too out of control. So, 5-Star Wrestling announce we're actually going to be on live TV. This is, of course, literally a month or so after the re-emergence of ITV's World of Sport for that one-off pilot that they did that aired like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, 2016-2017. Which was a solid show, but... And then, of course, we also had WWE's UK tournament in mid-January. So they announced... And then around the same time, What Culture announced their Pro Wrestling World Cup, with the idea being 8 shows, with 8 people going for 2 spots to then progress into the latter stages. So basically 64-person tournament. So then we get to Dominant. They decided to rebrand it as Dominant Wrestling. It wasn't 5-star, it was Dominant, even though it was a 5-star show. This was at the Dundee Ice Arena, so basically an ice hockey little stadium, which for over here in the UK, they're nowhere near as big as like the venues in America. Possibly a couple of thousand. I think the Dundee Ice Arena holds a couple of thousand. And had a pretty good thing, and was broadcast on Spike TV, which is one of the side channels. It's not like one of the main 5, although its parent company is Channel 5, so I guess it sort of is. But it was on Freeview anyway. I recorded it and everything. It was a pretty solid show. For dark matches, had Luke King Sharp, Kid Fight, Jack Jester, Irving Garrett, Joe Coffey, Deviation. Don't know if I don't recognise that name. And Jay Lethal and Zach Gibson. That was a dark match. It's like, jeez. So then they said, okay, we're doing a 5-star championship tournament final with me and all these other people that came out. So the quarterfinals had John Morrison beat Moose, Rey Mysterio beat Nick Aldis, Carlito beating PJ Black, and Drew Galloway beating Chris Masters. Then they had the semi-final with John Morrison beating Drew Galloway, and Rey Mysterio beating Carlito. So then we get to the final. And the key point with this, just like these modern shows, Greg Lambert and Joe Hendry were on commentary. Greg was not really my sort of taste of commentary. You know, really good. But Joe Hendry was solid, as he always is, because he's good on the mic. If you're good on the mic, you're probably going to be good in some capacity to be a colour guy. So, Morrison wins. But then afterwards, he lays down a challenge that he says no other champion's ever offered. And they're announcing a 128-man tournament, beginning in Manchester, at the Manchester Arena. And a whole host of other shows with various matches on it, and it eventually, like, I think they said, like, in the fall of, or, you know, in late 2018, we'll be crowning the tournament champion, because it was going to take over the course of more than a year. The thing is, I have to say I think that, because he's like, 128-man tournament, and they had put this graphic up, which just looks like, wow, that looks like it's been hurriedly put together. And Morrison's like, you know, I'm willing to put my belt on the... And they cut it off with about 5 minutes left because they needed commercials before they went to the next program. They actually cut it off to leave everybody going, wait, what's actually going on? The production values for that was just... And then the whole concept as well, if you don't include the dark matches, only 8 men were on this card. That was it. Because they were in the quarterfinals, then the winners got in the semis, and then the 2 got to the final. There was only 8 people technically on this card, because I can't remember whether they showed the dark matches in between, like, to give the people some rest and whatever. I don't think so, because commercial breaks, because I guess they crammed it all into 3 hours. I can't remember off the top of my head. So then we came to the shows. You know, they were announcing, we're going to be at Manchester Arena, we're going to be at the Birmingham NEC Arena, we're going to be at Newcastle's Arena, we're going to be in I think they said the Wembley Arena for London. We're going to be at the Hydro in Scotland. They were going to all the big arenas. Stress the word arenas. Okay, so I actually got the details here because it came out of the press statement. The 5-star tournament got rescheduled. It was going to start June 10th, but they delayed it to February 2018. This was announced on June 1st. So literally a week and a half before the shows were due to happen. So, just looking at the list of the venues that they had, the Liverpool Echo Arena, Newcastle Arena, Sheffield Arena, London Copper Box Arena, Belfast SSE, Aberdeen Arena, Manchester Arena, Leeds, Dundee Ice Arena, Blackburn Ice Arena, Moat Arena, Cardiff. So yeah, apart from Dundee and Blackburn being ice arenas, aka ice hockey places, all the others were big arenas. The thing is how this came about. It was reported that ticket sales for this show were not very good, because all they were announcing was like, oh, well, we've got Rob Van Dam and we've got John Morrison. They were being vague and not giving very many details as to what was even going on with the tournament, even as of June 1st, 2017. The really dodgy thing that irked quite a lot of people was one of the excuses that they gave. So, back on the 22nd of May 2017, there was a terrorist. There was, a terror attack on the arena at a Ariana Grande concert. At the arena where 5-Star Wrestling was due to have one of their shows. I think it was the March 22nd one. There's an irony there. Because that was going to be where the show anyway. I'm trying to think the numbers. 23 people were killed, 500 injured. It was a terrible incident. 5-Star Wrestling said because of this, people were afraid of going out to arenas. And that's why the ticket sales were slow. Not the best thing to say, in all honesty. So already there was not very much good faith going towards 5-Star and what they were doing. Then this story needs to take a bit of a sideways step. Preston City Wrestling, UK promotion, as you could sort of guess, based out of Preston, had a deal that they were trying to arrange with a TV station called Free Sports, which is supposedly available on Freeview to everybody in the country I couldn't get it. I still can't get it. I've retuned as much as I can to say, oh, it's on this channel band. No. And the idea was, in 2018, Preston City Wrestling was going to be producing live, weekly, 3-hour shows, because that's what Free Sports wanted as per request. Yeah, it was pretty good. Then it really got interesting. Yeah, so the management believed at PCW that they had an agreement to host a Fright Night event, which they were having in October, to be broadcast live on this new channel. And the idea was that actually, okay, it wasn't weekly, it was going to be monthly shows, but they'd be live on Free Sports for people to be able to see. The TV company, in September, then said there was a misunderstanding and there wasn't actually an agreement with PCW at all. Which PCW were very like, well, we thought there was. What's going on? And then they announced, we've done a deal instead with 5-Star Wrestling. And they said the promotion will be our exclusive UK wrestling supplier, which rules out any PCW events which may want to be covered. They switched direction late in the day, just looking at the details. Assurances were given every Monday before we announced the date, and then, of course, they went back on it. This is something I forgot. So, when they announced these, it was actually when they announced that they were rescheduling the shows. 5-Star said, if CM Punk wants to be part of our promotion, you know, for one fight, we'll give him $1 million. Daniel Hinkles, who's one of the people behind 5-Star Wrestling, basically said, quote, we've been trying to contact CM Punk on and off for well over a year. We even wanted him in 2015. We want to offer him $1 million to join the tour. Oh, and so this was this was May, like 2 weeks before they pulled the show. Before, you know, the set of shows, and delayed them to 2018. So you already see, logistically, there's some dodgy shit here. Then you have to take into account, and this came out, there's a lot of investment apparently that's been put into this deal between Free Sports and 5-Star Wrestling. A lot of people with a lot of money invested stuff into this. And then they started announcing talents. And this is where it sort of took another dent. The whole tournament idea was being ignored. The idea it was just going to be a weekly 3-hour wrestling show, as if that's actually what people want, like a 3-hour show. Because I don't think it is, in all honesty. So they announced the roster. would be Dave Mastiff, Big Grizzly, John Morrison being 5-star champion, El Ligero, Kid Fight, Luke King Sharp, Charlie Sterling, Nathan Cruz, Jack Jester, Rampage Brown, Eddie Ryan, Adam Maxted, Zach Gibson, Joey Axel, PJ Black, Chris Adonis, Carlito Moose, Rob Van Dam, Rey Mysterio, and Jake Hager, former Jack Swagger. So, some British wrestlers in there of note. Others that, I mean, I'm not singling out Adam Maxted, but he was a reality TV star that decided to get into wrestling. So be it. But there was quite a lot of WWE names. I mean, Moose Respect wasn't, but, I mean, John Morrison's ex, WWE, PJ Black, Chris Adonis, Carlito, RVD, Mysterio, Jack Swagger, all have previous, if you will. But the thing is, that roster was only announced on January the 9th. If you're planning this far ahead, considering the first show was February the 1st, yeah, that sounds a little concerning. I would argue, ever so slightly. So, we get to the first show. The ropes, they're admitting, even in interviews that I saw, they don't know that much. We're just sort of fans that are putting on this show. But we're going to put on a hell of a show, sort of deal. The key thing to note, Liverpool Echo Arena, so you're thinking, right, they're really going to be doing well. They were using, if even that much, half the arena capacity. Of which, at least for the Liverpool show, I think there may have been only 1,000 people there. So from the lighting was utter terrible, so you couldn't see the crowd, probably because they were trying to hide the fact that there weren't as many people there as they were hoping. I think they were all sat on one side because they were trying to make it look good for the hard camera, so when you got the shot to the other one, you saw very large spots of empty seats. The Tron graphics were there for only 2 people, maybe. And they were just generic ones, apart from for some of and it was generic music for everybody, apart from the US wrestlers who of course had their real music. So the first show in Liverpool had PJ Black beating Tim Wiley, Jack Jester beating Primate. So I guess he did wrestle on the show. Mark Haskins winning the inaugural Tap or Snap Championship, which was a I think it was a submission sort of only title, 5-way eliminator. Beating Joey Axel, Flash Morgan Webster, BT Gunn, and Nathan Cruz. Rampage Brown beat Moose. Then in the tournament semi-finals to crown the inaugural tag champs, Adam Maxton and Charlie Sterling beat Carlito and Chris Masters, and El Ligero and Jody Fleisch beat Dave Mastiff and Big Grizzly. So the interesting angle there was it was heels and heels, and then Ligero and Fleisch's faces beating heels. So it's already a bit of a mess. Jack Swagger beat Eddie Ryan. Rey Mysterio beat Zach Gibson by DQ. And this is where we get to the one good point that I think we could find definitively that came out of these shows, and that was Zach Gibson getting on mainstream television and proving that, my God, he's great on the mic. Wrestling work is solid, possibly needs some improvements. Given that the reports are now that he's going to the E, we'll get to that, is an interesting point. And then John Morrison beat Rob Van Dam, and then Zach Gibson sort of came down afterwards, sick of all this American talent on a British wrestling show. There was even one bit where the Scottish guys, Bram and whatever, were in the back, and they found some random person in a locker room and said, "We want a match next week," despite the fact that they weren't even in charge. So, that was just a mess. It was just, and then the big thing for that show was the ropes, I think, were made out of bloody licorice shoelaces. They were stretchy as all hell. It was absolutely terrible. It obviously, that was the teething pains. It was, okay, let's see how they do the next week. So, show 2 was in Newcastle. Max Money of Charlie Sterling and Adam Mexted won the tag titles. Overall, still a pretty solid show and everything. I think, from what I remember, the match, this was a decent show. It culminated in John Morrison losing the 5-star title to Jack Swagger. So then we transition to the following week. We're in Sheffield for week 3. Trying to have a look at the card here. Joe Hendry had his first match because he was sort of goaded into it, which was solid. But the key thing to note was Jake Hager beat Ryan Hunter by submission to retain the 5-star main title. The tag title was retained by Max Money. Tap or snap, nowhere to be seen because Haskins isn't even on the show, from what I can see. I can't remember whether he was on the second show. So we get to week 4. Keep in mind, all 3 of those other shows were at big arenas, and they didn't use the full setup of the arena. Then we got to Plymouth Pavilions. The big deal about that is hang on. Trying to lost my place of notes. This was the Plymouth Pavilions is a much smaller venue. It's not as big an arena. It's still pretty large, but capacity-wise, at least from what I saw for the footage, it was overall better. The big thing coming out of it, if you want to argue that, Matt Riddle beating Mark Haskins to become the new Tap or Snap champion. And Jack Swagger beat Eddie Ryan. Other stuff, went down as well, but it was a solid show and certainly looked somewhat better, but still, it was sort of getting to grips with what's going down. So then we get to week 5. The issue is, this happened when the weather over here was absolutely terrible. We were getting a major snowstorm from Siberia. There's like the jet stream. We were getting a lot of, inclement weather. So much so that the following day I did get stuck in it. But it was just starting to come in Thursday, which left a lot of people that they wanted on the show not being able to make it. El Ligero was stranded. Rey Mysterio couldn't make the way over. The irony is, then the following night, he got injured. which put him out of the New Japan stuff. But either way, so the deal on this one is Zach Gibson, and even to some extent commentary, were burying Jack Swagger for not appearing on the show. You know, just having the title and just disappearing. The key thing to note, the reason why he disappeared, is because at the time they were filming Lucha Underground, and he's part of their roster. So obviously he can't be in sort of two places at the same time, because Lucha Underground are doing filming at any points in the week where basically it's possible to. I think it was that Thursday, at the start of March. Because of the weather, they also curtailed the TV show. Quite a lot of the show, that's the thing as well. All these shows were shown on Joe Hendry's Twitch and Facebook on various places. But it wasn't that. If you went to 5 Star Wrestling's page or Free Sports page, when they said they provided stream for people that can't get it, they never did. I had to look around and go to the various local newspapers, which, from what I can tell, because there was a lot of them covering it, they might be one of the big financial backers that were sort of into it, because it was sort of regional sort of stuff. So that might be where it is, sort of the situation that developed. So because they couldn't get Ray because of the weather, somehow, I'm trying to remember how they got it, they did get Alberto El Patron. So he sort of came in, from what I remember, to replace Mysterio, taking on Jody Fleisch in a very good match. Max Money beat the Kings of the North to retain. And then they debuted what Zach Gibson debuted as the real World Championship that only would be defended by British wrestlers. He was immediately challenged by Eddie Ryan and won. Thanks to some interference from Bram and everything. Because he beat everything that was put in his way, because I guess Swagger was supposed to be the heel, because he was like, if you want a match, you've got to win a 5-star gauntlet match, which is basically beating 5 wrestlers, which was 3 wrestlers, and then a handicap match. But he won it and everything, so it was like, here's this champion. But because Hager didn't, he lost on the Plymouth show, the hometown guy sort of deal. But he then got a chance to challenge Zach Gibson for the real title. And it happened. And, Eddie Ryan became the new champion. And then afterwards, both he and Zach Gibson, who was supposed to be heel and everything, got beaten down by, I think it was Max Money, just a combination of people, and Bram. Which was a very interesting sort of development, because Zach Gibson's, been attacked. What's going on? Turns out Zach Gibson was booked to be doing a few shows in China and in the East. I think sort of the same sort of shows that Pete Dunne was doing, because he's doing quite a little bit of stuff up there, showcasing the British style of wrestling, I guess, to those out there, and probably making a sweet buck off it. Hopefully, anyway. So they put out a statement saying Zach Gibson, they said his real name, but I'm not going to say it here. Zach Gibson will no longer be on our shows. We wish him the best in the future endeavours, which is in or around the same time the rumours of he might be getting an NXT/205 Live call-up, whatever, in the near future. Because they were impressed by, I think he was part of the British tournament thing, and certainly they were paying attention to his success as the grizzled young vets and everything in progress, and other promotions in the UK where he's been beginning to make a name for himself. So they then announced they weren't having a show, from what I remember. Yeah, so they had the show in Belfast, but then, I think the day after Belfast, they put out a statement that said, "We regret to announce that the scheduled 5-Star Wrestling show in Aberdeen for next Thursday night, March the 8th, has been postponed in light of the severe weather and travel chaos," which had not only affected the last show in Belfast, but had significant knock-on effects impacting this week's show. And key members of the team stranded and whatever. And they delayed it to make sure the people of Aberdeen get the best show possible and giving them as much notice as possible on the rescheduling. And they said, with more snow set to fall, weather warning still in place and flights being cancelled backed up, we had no way of guaranteeing the quality of the show. The irony is, the weather turned out to be, at least by Thursday, is the majority of the major issues had gone. So they would have been able to do the show properly. Okay, it was an abbreviated 2-hour program because of flight delays and cancellations and whatever. Apparently, to the statement that they put out. So the show got delayed to April the 12th. They weren't scheduled to be having a show March 15th. Instead, they were going to be having their next show was going to be March the 22nd, which, as of recording this, was basically last week. And I noticed on one of the forums that I peruse, they were basically saying, they're doing a show near me at the Manchester Arena. Yeah, the venue where they said, oh, nobody will go because, they're scared to go. Again, it was because it was an arena. They were barely using any of it. Tickets apparently were even worse than where it was before, where they weren't even getting anywhere in the region of 4 figures, even with walk-ups, as they were predicting, if logically what was happening. And there was no card even sort of announced. They sort of tried to do a make-do by saying, oh, the burial that we did of Jack Swagger was was just storyline. We hope to have him back on the next show, despite being rather visceral in sort of yeah, thanks for not choosing us, you prat. From what I remember, Tuesday the 20th of March. I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday. It may have actually been Wednesday. Let's see if Okay, I'm just actually looking at the tweet that announces this. This was March the 20th, so it was on Tuesday afternoon. It's with great sadness that we announce that there will be no more 5-Star Wrestling events. Fans need to contact their point of purchase for refunds. The company running the events has been shut down. We're sorry to all that were involved. I'm literally looking at the details on this at Company's House because they decided to tweet that with their stuff. The company was apparently incorporated, this Pro Wrestling UK Limited, on the 1st of March 2017. So basically, as they were gearing up to do the first original schedule of shows. Their first accounts were due by the end of December 2018, because you obviously need to set it up, but they did need to send out a confirmation statement, apparently. The statement was due by the 14th of March. As from what I can see of this listing, it still hasn't been sent, which obviously is going to be a case because it's literally being liquidated. Hinkles said this on his Facebook, quote, "Hi everybody, last night at 4 PM, that's Monday the 19th, Jason informed me that he's closing the wrestling company down, that all future shows are now cancelled. By 8 PM, he and I had put a plan in place to continue running at least the very minimum the Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham and Aberdeen shows that we were doing, with a view of finishing the remaining dates to see out the company's contractual obligations. This plan's now fallen by the wayside, so here we are. I want to apologise for being cagey this last week or so of my communications, right up until an hour or so ago. I still believe we'd end up working the shows, but unfortunately it's out of my control. I'm truly sorry this didn't work out. The Plymouth show was a sign of great things that could have achieved, and I want to thank you all for your efforts on the course of the journey. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them." I haven't followed up or anything with that as to what happened with that. But yeah, it got wound up March 20th. As I say, the website was there for a week, but now is just a placeholder thing saying the promotion doesn't exist. The farcical thing about this, though, is all these individuals still have the belts, from what I can tell. There was a indie show this past weekend featuring, I think, Adam Maxted, and he was 5-star champion, and the fans, of course, were making fun of it, and of course, he being an actual decent heel, even though he's a reality star, was going, "Yeah, I'm going to forever be the champion." Eddie Ryan, I guess, has still got the real world championship. Matt Riddle's got the Tap or Snap championship. And I guess Jake Hager, Jack Swagger, whatever you want to call him, got the 5-star wrestling championship. The actual main title. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Whether they can keep them forever, because obviously it's liquidated, so I don't, whether they need the actual money of the assets, so they have to be sent back. Who knows? So all in all, a mess that started to get better and then collapsed in sort of an inevitable way, because it just seemed like it was doomed to failure from previous mistakes. That's why I've sort of gone this far back, because it's an important sort of backstory. Now, lessons learned. I mean, there's a lot of negatives to take from it, but from the positives, there's a lot of British wrestlers that got shown on TV. Jody Fleisch, a revival for him. Because not everybody, I think, got the NGW stuff, which is admittedly on YouTube, but it was broadcast on some of the Freeview channels over here for a number of years in various little segments on the regional channels that come up over here. But looking at the names, you had like Matty Mayhem, Flash Morgan Webster, the Magnums, the Knight Brothers, the Hooligans, Knight Brothers, Mark Haskins, Eddie Ryan, Marcus Burke, Dave Mastiff, Big Grizzly, Nathan Cruz, BT Gunn, Ricky Knight Jr. as well, Kid Fight and Looking Sharp, Tora and Hagen, from Europe, Adam Maxted and Charlie Sterling, and most importantly, probably Zach Gibson. All got to be showcased their stuff on television, and obviously in the case of Zach Gibson has been picked up to do other stuff. Obviously some of the other people are already in a lot of high profile British promotions, be it Progress, PCW, Defiant, all that sort of stuff. So, hopefully that means that those people will get future bookings. The other thing is, other promotions are stepping in to sort of help. Preston City Wrestling was saying, if anybody had tickets to the Manchester show, if you've got proof that you've got tickets, whether you ordered it online or, you've got physical tickets that were sent to you, if you show proof, we'll try and line up something so you can get a ticket to the show that we've got. I think it's the one that they've got on WrestleMania Sunday, April 8th. We'll get back to that show. But also Fight Club Pro put out a little statement saying anybody that was set to go to the Birmingham Genting Arena shows, which were due to happen on, I think it's April the 5th. Let's double check on the calendar. Yeah, April the 5th, so a week on after where I'm filming this, basically 28th, end of March. Anybody that had tickets to the Birmingham show, again, if there was proof, and they try and set things up into sort of giving them tickets to this Easter Sunday's final night of the Dream Tag Team Invitational tournament that they've got as part of the Insomnia Gaming Festival that's happening at the NEC in Birmingham this Easter weekend. Again, it's a nice little touch. And then, going back to PCW, they went to Free Sports and said, hey, we noticed that, because I believe Sunday they were doing a full 3-hour repeat of the show that they were going to do. For, I guess it would have been the Birmingham show, because it would have been that week going into WrestleMania. So they said, hey, Free Sports, we noticed that there's a 3-hour slot that you haven't got for anything. And obviously, 5-Star Wrestling is no longer, operating. We've got the equipment. Let us do it. And they've been doing a thing, trying to get people hyping it, retweeting it, trying to send the message of, yeah, we want British wrestling, we want British wrestling on TV. I don't know what the situation is with that, because it'd be an interesting show for them to put on, to cash in on the fact that obviously a few hours after that show, if not probably by when that show starts, the pre-show for WrestleMania will be beginning. So it will literally be like a good thing to actually bounce off on for wrestling fans to watch before they get the convoluted 6 hours or whatever that WrestleMania will be. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. Hopefully it's good. But there's still way more negatives that need to be learnt from this. One, if you're inexperienced in the wrestling business, get experience before you try and jump to do arena shows. I mean, hell, Fight Club Pro took some in the region of 4 or 5 years, going from nightclubs to actually doing shows at sort of bigger venues, culminating in a pretty big show. I mean, it's not, from what I can tell, actually in the actual arena. It's going to be an area that they've set up within the NEC, but obviously that's a big exhibition centre, so there's probably enough room. So you got that, which seems to be, you know, pretty solid. You know, and Progress as well started from a nightclub, and it's only it's took them about 5 years or so of work to now be coming this September doing a show at Wembley Arena. It takes time. You can't just jump in and say, oh yeah, we're doing arenas. I guess the moral as well for free sports is whatever deal was offered in terms of financial to actually get the thing put on, it clearly was the wrong thing, because they haven't delivered. They only did 5 shows out of the, I don't know how many they were supposed to be doing, because the idea was it was supposed to be every week, even though you could clearly see there were some spots where it wasn't going to be every week. But yeah, in terms of the positives, there's a plethora of mainstream stuff for the British guys that hopefully can act as a CV to say, I've been on British television. You know, sure, it was on a promotion that sort of failed, but that isn't my fault. I got booked on the show, and, you know, it's a showcase of my work. Hopefully, you know, they progress on and get another good gig, another promotion. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to end it on that note, but you sort of have to. You know, this video's nearly an hour and everything, but I wanted to go over the details of everything that went down on this promotion. And how people should learn from this to not do it again. But then at the same time, you know, take the positives, book some of the wrestlers, perhaps even book some of the venues. You know, because if they are looking for to do a show in Plymouth and they want to do a small venue, the Pavilion seems like a good place. But yeah, don't try and be something that you're not going to be, because you know as we've clearly seen from what's happened here with 5-Star Wrestling, you need to be able to do a lot before you can even start to sort of make your boasts and claims. You know, What Culture, WCPW, whatever you want to call it, got rebranded and everything to a similar show, but certainly not the same. There's been no signs of them doing a second World Cup, so clearly that was even... So if a 64-man tournament for them was a bit of a logistical nightmare, imagine what it would have been for the 128. Just as I get into the top of this hour, and we've got a blooming long video, just keep in mind, stay on the right track, stay at a pace that you can be capable of developing and not getting overburdened with anything. Hopefully that's what we can take from 5-Star Wrestling. And also that Zach Gibson may be God. If anybody tweets that to him just the last 30 seconds of this video, just remember that. He may be sort of the new star to watch in terms of a British wrestler possibly getting picked up by the E. The Scouse man has some damn good attitude at being a bad attitude. I don't know. All I'm trying to say is he was a standout star and probably made that promotion what it was for the 5 weeks. So to those wrestlers that have lost their pay, I wish them the best in their future endeavours. And to the people behind 5-Star Wrestling that made this promotion the mixed bag that it was, I sort of don't wish you the best in your future endeavours, because you should have seen it coming. Anyway, this video has been going on too long. Check out other content here on the network. Food stuff, film stuff, Halloween Horror Night stuff, all that sort of stuff. I'll see you on the next video.